I find it kind of hilarious that, dare I say, we live in a society where you have people complaining about objectification. So they're going to attack random anime artists on Twitter, complaining on the way they're depicting their female characters, or video game developers are also in hot water. And more recently, you even have companies like Facebook, and people are complaining that apparently Instagram is hurting young women, and we need to be more careful with how corporations market their products to little girls because we don't want to ruin little girls psychologically and whatnot. And no one is complaining when a product does exactly that to men at an unfathomable scale. And I think the reason they're not complaining is because they don't know how it is to be a man. Like, most of the people that are complaining about these things are usually young women. It's not even elderly women that have kids and they have a son and they start to realize, oh my god, look through the horror that my son is going through. No, you have usually like teenage girls that are complaining about these things, and teenage girls have no idea on what it's like to be a man. How could they? But every now and then, one of them have their eyes opened and they get into the proverbial shoe and they start suffering from depression. And some of them post it on Reddit. Now, of course, it's on Reddit, so you may say, well, V, maybe this is fake. If it is fake, it seems that it resonates with a lot of people. I mean, this actually blew up, and you have men and women posting into this comment and they're saying, yeah, it happened to me too, I tried this, or I actually know a person that tried this and they experienced the exact same thing you're writing here. So, first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the dating apps, which are absolutely objectifying men to a degree rarely seen throughout human history. I mean, you just go and you pick up a phone and you see the face of a person, which is now a product, and you can either swipe left or swipe right. How is that not like going to a supermarket and purchasing meat from the shelves? Now, when I grew up, there used to be a stigma about people trying to find a date in the newspaper because it had like this dating section. But now, there is no stigma on using dating apps. And by the way, dating apps seem to be harmful both for men and for women. But it doesn't really matter, okay? And by the way, I'm not saying that they shouldn't exist. But I'm questioning, like, you have people that are complaining about Instagram. Why aren't they complaining about dating apps whatsoever? To me, that seems fake. It doesn't seem like it's a grassroots movement that is legitimately thinking for themselves. And they're like, all right, let's see what corporations are harming young people in society and let's try to criticize them so they can do better. No, that's not it. It seems like completely fake controversy with people just jumping on a bandwagon that are complaining about Instagram or anime. So apparently this lady tried to help her brother with dating apps. And they're both at the age of 30. Now, by this age, my grandmother actually had children. I just want to point out so you can understand how much society is moving away from how things used to be. So she is saying that she wants to help her brother finding a significant other because he was struggling to find someone else for 3 years. And now he also suffers from mental issues. And I gotta say, us human beings are not meant to be alone. It's not about sex, it's also about companionship. It's about going to the park and holding hands with the person you love. Doing what you see other people doing around you. And if you don't get companionship, if you're alone, yeah, it can definitely create many mental health issues and it can lead to depression, suicide in worst cases. So I can definitely see why she is trying to help her brother. Because there are no such things in society that help men out with how they need to behave in order to get a date. Like, please let me know if you think of any, except maybe like pickup artists, and even those are probably trying to con men who are very desperate and are willing to give away their hard-earned cash in order to get some bullshit advice. And even then, society as a whole dislikes pickup artists. So if you're a man, as far as I can tell, there is absolutely no place where you can go in order to get some actual advice on how to find a significant other. Like how to date, how to behave accordingly, how to romance. Like those things, if they exist, they're usually bullshit advice. And very rarely you can get some good advice. And that is only if you're lucky enough and you have a father that is willing to sit you down and have the conversation with you. Or you have a couple of friends that know how to do these things and are willing to express them to you. Very rarely you're going to get this advice from a woman, because women, they are very good at finding men, but unless you find a lesbian, it's a lot more complicated. So my point is that this lady is going to find out that she doesn't know either, right? So this lady who wrote this Reddit post has no clue on how to behave like a man in order to attract women. So she points out that her brother is 6 foot, 165 labs, and has moderately good looks, has a stable job which makes him good money, and she set up a Tinder account and a Bumble and completed the profile description on his second phone, and she swiped and initially chatted with the women who matched with the profile, and her aim was to show to him how to talk to women to keep them interested in him, because his main complaint was that they never respond. I thought of sending the first few messages and then letting him continue the conversation. It has been 2 weeks now. My experience has been utter garbage. Nobody wants to have a conversation. Wow! Any of you guys experienced any of this? I don't quite understand why. Maybe I am doing something wrong. Yeah, you're doing wrong because you assume you know what it's like to be a man and you assume you know how it is like to talk to women. Just like I have literally no idea how a woman goes around and manages to attract the guy she likes, why do you assume you would know how to attract women as a guy? I mean, maybe you can learn after spending a lot of time doing it. Us men learn, but other than that, like just going in raw and being like, all right, I'm going to go into the thick of it and I'm going to show you how it's done. I'm going to be the Don Juan. I'm going to be La Casanova. No, it doesn't work that way. So now she feels depressed. Now she feels depressed because all these years I kept telling him that he was doing something wrong. I always thought that only rude, broke, obese, unhygienic, and bad-looking men suck at dating apps, and others had a fair chance. Well, I was in for a rude awakening. So let's see what she experienced. Very few matches when compared to what women get. He got a few matches on the first couple of days, and after that it's just a match or two a day. I used to get scores of good matches as a woman, and I was very picky. Well, yeah, what makes you not think that your pickiness contributed to the problem? I mean, why do you not think that other women chose the exact same matches as you do, and the ones you ignored were also ignored by the rest of the women? Hardly any responses from his matches. Yeah, by the way, I never understood this, because I used Tinder for a little bit in my life as well. It's like, why would women match with someone but then never talk with them? Maybe it's like when I go on Steam and I buy a video game, but then I never get to play it. Maybe it's kind of like that. Women just don't want to have anything to do with him. This is perfect what affected me the most. I watched in despair as matches just kept expiring. Sometimes they would stop after a few messages, and other times they wouldn't even send a message or a reply. I have used Bumble and Tinder myself. Men don't do this. 90% of the men respond to the first message. This is worse than getting a dick pic, which has happened to me a few times. At least the person on the other side wants you, even if it's just to have sex with you. Imagine being ignored like a piece of trash. Yes, congratulations. Welcome to our world, and notice how we are rarely crying about it. That's what it felt like. 90% of the matches never initiated the conversation or responded to the first message. How is he supposed to get on a date when there are no responses from the other side? Hey, you know what? If you figure this out, write a book about it. It's going to be Amazon's bestseller. Few poor quality matches. Most women who matched with his profile were nowhere close to his educational qualification or salary range. In fact, there wasn't even a single match who initiated a conversation that I would say matched his salary and education level. I never had this problem with all the apps. There were loads of men who were either equal or better than me in salary and education. All right, I can explain this. You see, when you go online as a man, you're not competing with a couple of other men. You're competing with thousands, if not tens of thousands of men. And statistically, it shows that women prefer the top 5% of men. So unless he's got 2 PhDs and is probably a millionaire, then he's not even in that 5% range. So women aren't interested in that. And I'll tell you something else that I noticed, and this is true with culture in general. Like, I happen to be at a table with other women, and I know how they speak. So, for example, you can have a woman that's a 5 or maybe a 6 in looks and things that men are interested, and she will say, you know, maybe I should lower my expectations a little bit. Maybe I can't go out with men that are 10 because I'm not a 10 either. So maybe I should go with men that are at least a 6 or a 7, like somewhere within my range. And immediately what you're going to see happening is that every single woman at the table is going to go like, no, don't lower your standards. Never do that. Never do that. Like, be unrealistic. Just keep going, because one day you're eventually going to find that 10. And you have like articles in The Guardian and feminine magazines writing the exact same shit, which constantly say, hey, if you're an average woman when it comes to sexual attractiveness, don't lower your expectation and try to date a average man. No. You need to date the best. You need the Ronaldo in your life. You need the Bezos in your life. You need to aim for the top. So our culture is pumping these unrealistic expectations in women, where they don't have to ask themselves, like, what do I have to offer for the relation? What do I have to bring for the table? No, the question is, what does he have to bring for me? And is he the best? And if he is not the best, then I'm not going to be happy with anything else. Meanwhile, as a man, I mean, even on this channel, when I show the picture of my wife, I have people going around saying, oh my god, she's too good for you. Oh my god, V, like, you're not worthy of her. Like, oh, she done. With men, it is quite different. Like, with men, you're always going to have other men trying to drag you down and tell you it's like, hey, you shouldn't aim to the top. Like, know your place. You're an average guy. You should be with an average woman. The situation is completely reversed when it comes to men. And this is why, probably, statistically speaking, when you look at Tinder, all of the women there, they like the 5% of the guys, but when you look at the guys, they like an even distribution of women. So average guys are going to try to go out with average women, and they are far more realistic about it. If you want common sense when it comes to dating, so you can literally piss away at all of these metropolitan ideology that's coming out, think of dating like looking for a job. If you're a person that doesn't have any sort of education, doesn't have any sort of work experience, but your dream is to work at Google, Microsoft, or Facebook, and you apply for these companies and they're not hiring you, when a friend comes up to you and says, hey, maybe you should lower your expectations a little, maybe try like something smaller, okay? If everyone would say, no, you should never lower your expectations, you should never try to improve yourself, just keep applying, because one day you're going to get your dream job. If you have this type of advice, isn't it really toxic? Isn't it really detrimental? Like, the reason you're never going to work at Google is because, well, you have no work experience and no education. So why not start with that? Try to get educated, try to get that work experience, try to build yourself up, and maybe then you apply and you might get the job. It's not even guaranteed, but maybe you might get the job. It's the same with dating. If you're the type of guy that is unable to look at a woman's face and you're staring at the titty and you have drool coming up, if you don't have your own house, if you don't have your own car, don't use a dating app. Try different methods. Try succeeding in life at something. Like, be the best at tennis, be the best at something. Try building up your character, gaining some confidence, be comfortable in your own shoes. And then you need to start practicing. It's incredibly hard, it's incredibly difficult, but just like going to Google, and you need that education, you need to go through the university for those 4 years or whatever, and then you need to get that work experience. It's not going to be done overnight. It's a constant, very hard and difficult process. And that's what people need to understand. If you look at those 5% of the men on social media, like on Tinder and whatnot, they're usually not teenagers, they're usually not very young. What ends up happening is that they have to build themselves up to be like that. And you don't have to be like that in order to get a woman that you like, to have a connection. You can completely avoid the dating apps and use other systems that work for your patterns. That's my advice regarding it. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.